What's up, guys? It's Tyler from Division 1 Trading, and today I'm going to be showing you guys the Reaper pattern. I'm going to show you how to identify it and how to trade it, and then just some quick things that I've been seeing around the pattern and how we can pivot to capture more trades. Let's get right to it. All right. So when we're looking for a Reaper, the first thing we're going to want to spot is a traditional breaker. So if you know anything about ICT concepts, you understand that just for example, a bearish breaker, we're going to have some area of buy stops and sell stops with a low and a high. Then we're going to take the low. Oops. Take that high and then move lower. So when that breaker has occurred, that's when we start looking for our setup. We're looking for it to, of course, come back down into this level. Sorry, I couldn't really click right there. That thing was in the way. So it comes back down, and what are we expecting? A retest of that low, and then to sell off. Now, a Reaper pattern, it first starts off with a broken breaker. So we're expecting it to be a bearish breaker here. It should break it. So now we don't just have a possible breaker, we have a failed breaker. So now that we have that failed breaker, we can begin looking for our Reaper pattern. And so this is the point of it, at least in my opinion, is we had a breaker. I think I've exercised that enough already, right? But in breaking this one, logically, we have to create another breaker because it took the same thing, right? It took buy stops, then it took sell stops, and then it broke. So we're now in a new breaker. And we would typically look for the highest up close candle in this leg to try to find support on it. Unless there is a fair value gap inside of this leg here. So when there's a fair value gap inside of this leg, price, instead of retracing till the breaker, will retrace down into what's called a Reaper fair value gap. And then we would expect a continuation. So when we have the Reaper and it pushes further, right, and breaks out, we can also measure this impulse leg that had the breaker on it. And what we can do is we can go in there and look and target one standard deviation of that swing. So that is essentially what we're talking about today. You can see I've highlighted some buy stops and sell stops. We could also make note of these here. So right here you can see we form a low and we form a high. And then not before long, we take out that high. And then we take out this low. So what is that telling us? We have a breaker. We've taken out a high and a low. So removing all of this, right? I don't want to confuse you right now. All we're looking at is this here. We've taken a high right here, and then we've broken below and taken that low. So now what are we expecting? We're expecting a retest of that low, which would be really these breaker candles here. So once it breaks below that, we would be expecting right here a retest and for it to actually head down. So when that fails, when we take these buy stops again, we can now look within this leg for the bullish move. This was part of the up run, part of this leg here. This leg here was part of this run right here. Takes the low down here, returns, takes out the high. Now, right here, you can see there is a fair value gap. So when this high breaks above here, we're not expecting price to come back and use this breaker here. We're expecting price to reach back into this Reaper fair value gap. And then go where? Right here. 1 standard deviation. So we reach back into the Reaper, and we end up falling just a bit shy of it, but nonetheless run through that level right here and get right up next to that high of the day before failing. And so we'll get into that in just a sec. So one extra little side note is when you're looking at that Reaper fair value gap, you want to cut it in half, and you only want to enter below that 50% line. That's going to give you not only the best entry, but the best risk to reward as well. Let me see. I don't think that line's straight. I want to show you on the 1 minute real quick. I know the 1 minute can be bad for a lot of traders, but I do want you guys to see this. It's very accurate. So even if you're just lining it up on the higher time frame and you come down here on the 1 minute, you can see that you really can line up nice trades. And for stops, I always use the low here. So I would use the low of that upswing right there. And you would obviously have to target at least these buy stops, but I would say really the rejection block here would be the earliest. I would even partial. And then it just ended up falling short. Came back to the Reaper entry, and it gave one more. This one only went for about 1.8 as far as risk reward, and then it turned around, which brings me to the point of this video. And so here's also a little another description here. And so this is just me highlighting right here. You can see the bearish breaker. It forms right here, takes the high and takes the low, and then it fails by taking the high, right? Breaker fails. And we've created that new bullish breaker here. And so when it retests it, we look for that gap. So the gap also, sometimes you'll see, will be right here. If it's present there, I've noticed that this gap actually will be a little bit more accurate if it's a larger gap. And I use the 15-minute chart when I'm looking for them. The 15-minute just for some reason seems to always iron them out a little bit better. So I wanted to talk about that as well. First, let's go here and let me see. Okay. So let's draw this out. And I want to talk about this level and how this level can be used multiple times when you're trading it. So obviously we were looking for the bullish Reaper. And it actually came in and gave us a profitable setup. We went into profit, and then it just ended up coming back. It didn't even stop us out and would have went into a little bit more profit before it eventually failed. Now, when it fails, right, I want you to notice the Reaper is always giving immediate feedback. And the Reaper cuts through candles. So it's more like a zone that we can continuously look for, at least throughout the day. So right here, you can see we traded into it and got immediate feedback. As soon as it traded, responded. Traded into it, responded. Now what happens right here? The same thing. And I want you to notice this, and like I was saying, it's more the point of this video is if the Reaper is already, think about the logic of this, right? The Reaper is already based off of a breaker failing and then creating another breaker. And if we know that smart money is targeting retail, we know that they're going to have to pivot. So if two breakers are being broken, that is creating liquidity. It's creating more liquidity from retail traders in the market, which means that they can act fast around these levels, which is why we can cut through candles. See it right there. Trades up and then sells off. And once it fails, where are you going to go short? Go short above this line now. And same thing here. Look, it would have gone into profit. And look at it. It came back. It again, cutting through candles. It runs right into it. And then starts selling off again. Now, all of that, again, it's not just a pattern. It's based off of logic on where buy stops, sell stops are going to be. It's tracking these retail trades. And so when we can spot this pattern, it really helps us as scalpers. Not necessarily swing traders. Obviously, it'll help on the higher time frame. But if you can locate these patterns on a 15-minute chart, oh, sorry, it's starting to get a little messy. If you can locate these on a 15-minute chart, it starts to become a lot easier to operate on the lower time frames. Now, I'm not saying you have to go down and trade a 1-minute chart, but even if you're trading a 15-minute or a 5-minute chart, these lines in the sand, if you will, once they're broken, it provides context for us to trade on the lower time frames based on the liquidity that's still there. Obviously, this day's ranging. It's just making higher highs and lower lows. Makes a low and a higher high, lower low, higher high, lower low. The day's just expanding. So logically, at this area, at this Reaper fair value gap, where liquidity is balanced, that's where they will create these pivots or these points. But like I was saying, I know this one might be a little confusing, and apologies if there might have been something that I didn't answer as clear. If you have any questions about this, just make sure you click the link in the description. It's a free group that I have where I just answer questions about stuff like this, helping you guys to better understand it. And yeah, if you just have any questions, feel free to hop in. We also do live trading Monday through Friday, so love to have you there, show you things like this live. But yeah, appreciate it. If you guys would like this video to get more content like this going, and subscribe for more videos of Zion sleeping on the love sack.